next thing. Let me give some details of the 2021 report. And let me point out to everybody that this slide deck will be available at our website. So I'm going to go over some of these slides quickly, and some of these slides are detailed. So if you don't, if I go too fast or too much detail, please feel free to go to our website and click on this slide deck, and you can be able to look at all these slides. And that's what this says. You can get to our website simply by going to an internet browser and typing in ctbirding.org, obviously short for connecticutbirding.org, ctbirding.org. So let me just come back to a point, and that is, a few months ago, very recently, CAS, Connecticut Audubon Society, published the state of the birds, and it was scary. Lots of birds reduced. 3 billion birds are gone. So our role, bird watchers, looking at canary in the mine to seeing changes in the environment, boy, this publication did it, and it makes us think there's a problem. So it's kind of depressing. But we're going to look at this from the positive way that we can. And let me introduce one little diagram here. It's the only diagram, and please forgive me, and I'll be brief on this, but the whole point of this diagram is, on the right, you see birds. These are the top. On the right, you see the green box, which is one of the 7 top priorities for COA, namely birds per se, that nice Blackburnian warbler. And number 2 is birders doing birding, bird watching, bird study, and all that that involves. And number 3 is the birders doing data entry via eBird or Christmas bird counts or summer bird counts or state bird atlas, which leads into science. Number 4, which leads to conservation, which requires the science to know how to plan, to do the politics, to make decisions, and to lead to actions. And hopefully conservation leads to the birds, protection, conservation, and bringing back. So that's the gist of how we think conservation should help this problem that we have of declining birds. So what did we do in 2021? Here I boiled it down to 10 things. We had to deal with the pandemic, which brought us new birders, and we had to make sure we were a big tent organization. We had to become more transparent and make sure we were welcoming and do communications to everyone. We wanted to go back and focus on seasonality, because it's a great window into nature and how everything is changing. We wanted to emphasize science. We want to emphasize conservation. We want to emphasize education, and of course, birding, quote unquote, which is all of this. But in particular, it's what people think of when they think of birding. It's probably why a lot of people join COA. And then the machinery for COA includes IT and infrastructure and collaboration and so on. Let me just step through these things. As I said, you can go back and look at them later on your own. The pandemic, we wanted to be very welcoming to new birders to help them learn more. So we came up with a new idea, field trip for new birders. Unfortunately, it got rained out 3.5 times. Finally, on the 4th time, we went out anyway. And we had a good time on a boat in Long Island Sound. The second concept is a birding community, and make sure it's a big tent, make sure that we support new birders as well as experienced birders and birders who travel the world, birders who lead trips around the world, birders who can identify subspecies and the most difficult gulls, and so on, and helping all the new birders come up the learning curve. Okay, the second point related to that is we wanted to be transparent and welcoming. So we went back and we did a project to focus on the history of COA and to give recognition and thanks to all of those people who were at the root of COA in the early 1980s and how it got started. And some of that you can see at our website. And that's why we did
19 hours.
It's 7 o'clock. And that's why we did the bios and the pictures of the board members I showed you, all of whom you can find at our website. And same for the affiliates, and the same for the ARCC members. And by the way, the website is continually improving, thanks largely to Cynthia Ellinger, who's made it much better than it was 1 year and 2 years ago. So thank you so much, Cynthia. The other vehicle for being transparent was CT Bird's listserv, and the new moderator that is Chuck and Bergamo replacing Roy Harvey. That was a very dynamic tool that COA has at its service, the CT Birds listserv. And what we call the TCW, the Connecticut Warbler, the annual journal, which is a fantastic scientific document, thanks to Greg Hanasek and Manny Marasotis, as I said before. And then the COA Bulletin, which continues to get stronger and stronger, thanks to Andrew Dazinger. And I won't forget the new logo, thanks to Julian Huff. Thank you all. The other idea, the other theme we had was seasonality. That is, we're very lucky to live in a climate which has very dynamic seasons, and it's very exciting. And it gives us a window into nature as it changes month by month. So we wanted to focus on that. So we came up with the idea of a Bird of the Month report, and we started that. And by the way, that segues into the Birds by the Season bar chart, which is being updated right now. And let me jump to that so you can see what I'm talking about. So on the bar chart on the left is the COA Birds by the Season bar chart, originally by Greg Hanasek and now being updated by Frank Gallo. It gives a month by month look at how the birds are changing in the state, when they're breeding, if they're breeding, and so forth. COA has a long history of studying this, and the research committee project extends that to birds' food web cycles. For example, down below is a comparable bar chart for the marine food web, and we're trying to synchronize that back to the Birds by the Season food web so that we can understand if there are cycle differences in timing. For example, when red knots arrive, will their food sources be available, or will they already have hatched out? And these timing differences are causing a lot of problems in birds. So this is a very essential part of current ornithological research, science. We decided we needed to emphasize science and ecology more. So we came up with the November 6th Science Conference. We'll probably do another one this year. And by the way, tonight's meeting, our annual meeting tonight, in 20 minutes, we're going to hear about Arctic changes and the science behind that. So this is really a science talk. And of course, we all supported the Bird Atlas, the Connecticut Bird Atlas, and another contribution to science, and all the other things we do to support science, the Summer Bird Council, Christmas Bird Council, and so on. Much of it goes into eBird and to other channels to capture the information. So thank you all for using eBird so much, because it enables the scientists to take our field work and translate it into data for the conservationists to use to understand what has to be fixed. Conservation. There are all kinds of things we're doing in conservation. Wish we had time to go into it. Craig Rapaz and Patrick Commons have been central to this. I'm not even going to get into it here because it would take a long time to give you all the stories, including we're working with Plum Island. We're working currently with the Lights Out New Haven and Lights Out Connecticut project, and the Magnuson Stevens Fishery project, and so on. Education. We believe education is everything in everything COA does. And we're trying to take the experienced birders and help the newer birders learn what they can from them. We believe we maximize conservation by maximizing education. A great example last spring was Chris Wood's, the current vice president, Chris Wood's Warbler Workshop. It drew 450 viewers back in whenever it was, April, I guess. And that's an amazing number of people who have an interest in birds, in warblers, and in wanting to enjoy the spring. And we use that to educate people to how to identify them, and then to put those information into eBird and so forth. Thank you very much, Chris, for that. And thank you very much for Kathy and Maureen for supporting all that so much. And then birding, quote unquote. Birding is everything we do. But in particular, I bulleted out the CT Birds listserv for all its great exchange and communication of birds, like the gull today. That was great. Is it better than the Kamchatka gull? I don't know. But this is a great example of what I call high voltage birding. Of course, ARCC is central to birding. The Birds of Connecticut checklist has been updated by ARCC. They're working on a seasonal birds, the species chart. There's Frank Gallo. Frank Gallo actually does a lot of these things. Frank is a birding personified. He leads bird trips around the world. Frank Gallo is co-secretary of ARCC. Frank created the current checklist of CT birds. He's almost done with the new seasonal species bird chart. He also wrote Birding in Connecticut, a very excellent book. He leads big day competition and so on and so on. So we're all about birding. COA is all about birding. However, to do that, we have some machinery. We need to keep the IT and the infrastructure working. Steve Maritko is our guy there. He does all these things that I listed, including, for example, working with Larry Reiter. Larry has been Mr. Membership for, I don't know how many years, 8 years, 10 years, I've lost track, and running the database for membership. And now Larry and Steve are working together to try and modernize to a new member database to automate membership and joining and renewing and paying. And that's an ongoing project. And we're working through any little wrinkles there, and hopefully it'll all be fine. And we like everyone to go with the automated methods, but some people we know still like to write checks. So we will accept that, although we'd prefer if you go automated using credit cards. And collaborations and teamwork. I just started to list all of the organizations we collaborate with, and it was on and on and on. Here's the list of all the organizations we collaborate with. And then I realized it wasn't all the list. Actually, it goes on. There's more organizations we collaborate with. Chris Wood is very central to all of that. And by the way, let me go back to the previous slide. Greg Hanasek is central to this because he is the Connecticut State Reviewer for eBird. So we have very tight collaboration with eBird. And okay, and the final point I want to make is that people and data are crucial for us. So, for example, finding backup persons for key roles in case a primary person moves on. We try to do that as much as we can. It's really important to have good people who are dedicated for at least a couple of years to doing some of these important jobs. And then next is finding the replacement people when the original persons move on. Such as the example below. Roy Harvey wanted to move on after 14 years, multiplied by 365 days a year. And Chuck Imbergamo said, I'll step up, I'll do it. Chuck, we love you, we're so glad. And Roy, we love you. So this is just incredible. If we can get, help with IT and help with a number of other things, we'll deeply appreciate it. Let me shift over to data. A lot of what COA captures that's of value is data about birds, when the birds arrive, how many numbers there are, how it changes over time, how it changes over the seasons, how it changes over decades, and also backing up that crucial data. So we're focusing on that. We're focusing on securing old bird data from people who've got old records and so forth. Okay, that's my summary of what happened last year at COA. A few final words. First of all, I want to thank you for your time and your votes. The slate of officers and new board members has been approved. If there are any questions, please put them in the chat and we will take them in the next couple of minutes. After that, we will take a break. Please stay connected. Don't disconnect your computers for the break. It's 7:09. So we're going to resume at 7. Stay connected. But at 7:30, Dr. George Devaki will start his presentation. And between now and then, we're going to have some Q&A, which we'll have right now. And then we're going to go into a break. So make sure you come back before 7:30, but hang on here for Q&A. I'd come back here at 7:28 or 7:27 to make sure you don't miss anything and you don't have any mechanical problems. So Q&A. And again, relying on Chris Wood and Allison Black. Can you please tell us, do we have any? Yeah, Chris Wood says make that 7:20. So I guess we're going to resume at 7:20. So can you, Chris, or Allison, tell us anything about the questions coming in?
No questions, Tom. Go ahead into the in memoriam and the subsequent slides.
Okay. Okay. And as I said, you can find this slide deck on our website. Let me just say that we're going now to have a very interesting presentation by George Devaki, and it's going to be all about how the Arctic is changing. And at the root of it is what we face in Long Island Sound. So here's a little preview of it, and that is, what do birds eat? Which is my favorite question. And it happens in Long Island Sound, where these common terns have to feed their young ones the right fish so they can swallow it and get nutrition. And we're going to see the same thing in the Arctic in a few minutes. This is Frank Mantlick's beautiful picture. So that's a preview of Dr. George Devaki. Here he is. Let me just show you some of his field data. I've spoken to George a couple of times recently. I'll give a longer introduction for him when we resume. And he has quite a story to tell based on his almost 5 decades of years in the Arctic, looking at black guillemots and how they're changing and why. So, Chris or Allison, what is the idea about 7:20 now? It's 7:11.